Alex, how are you today? Welcome to Modern Wisdom.
I'm very good. How about yourself, my man?
Yeah, I'm fantastic, thanks. It looks an awful lot nicer wherever you are. I can see there's a
Oh,
reflection of some good sunlight outside, which we haven't seen in the UK for a long time.
I live right on the beach in Venice, so I'm in a pretty opportune spot for weather.
Oh man, that is jealousy inducing to say the least. So we haven't got an agenda to today. We're just going to talk about whatever's on our mind. So what have you been learning about or reading about or thinking about recently?
Recently, so I got a few things I'm working on. I don't have any real structure to my day at all. I mean, like I do, but I don't. I basically just write an email every day and then tweet a lot and then just talk about stuff. So it's sort of like this personal brand influencer, strange position.
Yeah.
That you can't really qualify what you do, yet people pay attention to you all the time. But I mean, the big project I'm actually working on right now that's been constructive is I developed an online website learning portal with a business partner of mine called Sovereign University to teach people how to become sovereign individuals within like the modern sort of digital virtual economy, physical world as they've merged with each other. You know, myself, I've been working online for myself about going on 3 years. And before that, I'd worked with other people. And I've also been a personal trainer for 10 years, training people in person. But I always found myself attracted to sort of this political conflict. I like knowing what's going on, you know, in the sense that like on a meta level, not just on the level of petty politics. But it's been fascinating to me the last 6, 7 years to watch the dialogue and discourse devolve into this politicized rhetoric where everything's political and everything you say can and will be used against you. And you see people lose their jobs for what they said. You see people, you know, go under fire for every kind of comment. Everything is taken out of context, put into a different context. Yeah, and I realized for someone like myself, because I've gone through that myself, and I know what the consequences are. 3 years ago, I wanted to be in a position where I never had to worry about backlash of any kind. I didn't want to have to worry about an online mob. I did not want to have to worry about being doxxed. I want to be immune to all of that. And I realized if you work for yourself, if you're a sovereign individual in the sense that you are self-made, self-paid, self-employed, you own your own businesses, and especially in a digital world where things really can't be taken from you that way, and then you have physical basis, you're very untouchable in a certain sensibility. So Sovereign University is sort of built around that concept. But then it's also teaching people the fundamental skills they need and the mindsets to learn how to do this stuff and create high-value skills and create leverage. So it's an ambitious project.
That's cool. Are you liberating people from the monotony of a world where they might not be that happy at work? I was recently reading a study that said over 80% of Americans are either indifferent or actively unhappy with their jobs. And there's only, I think, between 18 and 20% who are actively engaged with their work.
Yeah, society isn't happy as a whole. I mean, I would say Western society isn't like as a whole isn't a big cultural malaise that way, where everyone senses it that something has gone wrong or things are not going well. You know, whatever well means. But you know, we all feel it. Like we all see it. You know, within like the media itself, where everything's an outrage every day. But you know, at the same time, the world is a good place and there's abundant opportunity if you know how to use it, capitalize on it, identify it.
Mm.
But, you know, I mean, the job unhappiness, like the nature of work has changed over the course of 50, 60 years. A job used to be something that you were. Now a job is just something that you do and oftentimes temporarily. There's a whole gig economy now where, yeah, how many careers are there anymore where it's a reliable path and you just do the same thing for 40 years? That's almost non-existent at this point. I don't know if that exists at all, honestly. Everything has changed. So you have to be, you know, hyper adaptive that way. And for most people where they want a set vision of the future and this is how things are going to go, you don't have that anymore. Yeah, again, that does not exist. So you have to be perceptive. You have to be self-aware.
What do you think are the important skills then, if we're moving into this very changeable time, which I completely agree that we are, and the old bastions of a job for life just don't seem to be there? What would be the skills if someone was thinking, if you were able to design a human now that was going to start at 18 years old or 21 years old, what skills would you give them and what values would you give them?
Skill wise, I would almost approach it from a classical liberal arts education, where the big skill that's been lost in the modern era is people's ability to think. That's been the biggest one. People's ability to think, people's ability to express themselves. But how is that a skill? It's a soft skill. But soft skills have hard consequences and hard capitalization within the modern economy. So if I had an 18-year-old and I want to make them as capable as possible in the job market, or a teenager, let's say 12, three things: rhetoric, logic, ability to argue, ability to speak, ability to write. If you can communicate very effectively in any environment that you're in, you're always going to be near the top. I've seen that so many times in so many different fields that I've worked with, consulted in, where the people that can talk best are the ones that get ahead. Yeah, it is. Because what does talking do for you? What does communication do for you? It means you pay attention to people and you can assess what their needs are. And if you're creating a product, or even if you're writing code, or even if you're writing an article, or if you're just doing customer service, and you're receptive to people, that is, I'm being very cliched, but that has been lost by a lot of people because digitization has removed human communication. We're so used to talking through text now, or showing an image, but then you get people face to face and you see how awkward they are.
They crumble, yeah.
Yeah, so those people that can speak on camera, those people that can talk at length, those people where they can have a conversation with someone and they know how to listen. Just doing those three things, you can identify so many opportunities within the digital economy and even the real world economy. Social media now has become such a big market for businesses, and even online as well. The same thing is basic stuff like copywriting, web copy, article writing. That's essentially what search engine optimization is on a meta level. So those three, being able to speak, write, argue, let's say persuade. That's what I would start with a young person. And then from there, it'd be more sort of like tangible, you could say, skill sets like knowing how to build a website, knowing how to take good photos, knowing just basic business arithmetic and math. The way modern education is set up, where you go to college and you learn all this information, and then you go to, let's say, some kind of job, and then you have to relearn everything again. That's completely backwards. I said this the other day on Twitter, where I think in the next probably year to 10 years to 20 years, what you'll see is sort of this return of apprenticeship, where people get out of high school, they go work hustle jobs, or they go work paid internships, and they develop these necessary skills, and then maybe they go back to school for a specific education to augment that.
Yeah.
That's how I would set up. And then, if I had a kid now, that's what I'd be telling them to do. I would not be telling them go to college. You'll find yourself at college. No, you won't. You're going to be made to take 2 years of worthless GE classes. You're going to be in a room with 100 people. You're probably going to be taught by a TA. You'll switch majors 4 times. And that's not even getting to the quality of the education, which has precipitously declined. So that's kind of like a shit show at this point.
I have to say, so I did 5 years at Newcastle University here in the UK, finished with a master's in international marketing, and I became incredibly disenfranchised and disenchanted with academia as I moved through that. And me and my business partner sat next to each other in our first ever seminar. And pretty much from that day, we started working together. And now, almost 13 years later, I've still not got rid of him. And I was being shown a world of business in academics, which was saying one thing. And then I was experiencing one in the real world, which essentially bore very little resemblance. And I think the time that I was doing it as well was very crucial, because this was 2006 to 2010. And that was, so I did a business management course, then international marketing masters. And there was not a single course on social media for the entire time that I was there. And that's like 2006 was when you still needed a university address to be able to sign up to Facebook.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? You had to have the correct suffix to your at.
EDU, I think it was.
Yeah. Oh, for the UK.ac.au. Yeah, exactly. So, we had that. And then you think imagine you're doing a marketing course now and no one anywhere mentions social media. You want your money back. Because it's just that massive selling chat. So I think that you're right. I think that these soft skills, they're the ones that are difficult to acquire, but they're definitely the ones that are scalable, right? And it doesn't matter what happens to the market. If you can sell and you can communicate. So I did a podcast the other day with a guy called Leon Scott from the UK. And afterwards he commented on the fact that it was the first time that he's had a 1-hour conversation with someone where he was completely focused on just what was being said, The content that we were going through, no one has their phone out. No one's, even looking at anything else other than to gesture or to remember. And I think that, like, having someone to practice conversing with, it sounds so bizarre that you need that, but like
people do need it. I mean, I agree. Like that's the quality of focus. I get asked that question constantly all the time. Like, how do I focus better? How do I study better? And I was a natural. Well, one, I never really studied much at all. I was always just. I have a very good memory. I was not the person that was like a good studier where I was studious that way. I was a terrible student all through high school, adolescence, college. I did the bare minimum to get by because I never saw the point in doing something just for the sake of doing it that way, which seemed to me to be the reason for education. But that quality of focus now, I get asked that question a lot by young guys, young gentlemen, and late teens, late 20s, even lady followers. And it's always the same thing, like, how do I focus better? And I always tell them, focus is just doing one thing at a time. Like that's it. It doesn't have, there's not a complicated definition. You're doing one thing and one thing only. You're having a conversation. You're making eye contact with somebody, even if it's through a screen, and you're talking. You're not looking at this, looking at that, clicking this, clicking that while trying to carry on. Like, it's one thing. What about that so difficult? But we live in this culture now where people pride themselves so much on multitasking and the ability to switch through apps and switch through devices, and their attention is constantly going to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And I realize it trains your thinking to not be able to think.
It's very fractured. And, as not to deliver a sob story, but I am on the receiving end. I feel that I am patient zero for someone who's been able to see this. So I was a late adopter of an iPhone. I was still holding on to the hope that BlackBerry was going to be good until maybe 5 years ago, something like that, which is a shame because, I miss the buttons. I genuinely do. I didn't. Yeah, and BB pin, having to change your BB pin every time you get a new handset. So what I've noticed is that I was a voracious reader when I was younger. I did a number of degrees, again, without a smart device that was as attention-grabbing as an iPhone is now, or a similar device. And my capacity for low stimulus activities, i.e. things like reading, like deep reading, has had and is still so heavily damaged that it is it's not even comparable. The way that I'm able to focus my attention doesn't even feel the same now. And I've had to construct this hilarious series of instantiation initiatives, as James Clear from Atomic Habits would, implementation initiatives, as James Clear would call it, so no phone in the bedroom. Phone is outside because I can't have it in here, because if I'm working, then it's that. If I'm at work, there's a special drawer where the phone lives that goes in my desk. Like, I've got my morning routine has very specific, like, order of things that I go through, because I'm like having to create the equivalent of like a toddler's environment where, you've got the little foam cups that go on the sharp edges of all of the sets of drawers and the desks and stuff. I've had to create myself an attention equivalent of that, because I essentially am a child who can't be trusted with technology anymore. And for me to relearn this deep work, the sort of Cal Newport approach to it, this single focus onto one particular topic at one time, I'm having to essentially place myself in a hermetically sealed environment where there's no danger of distraction. So I can, for the guys that are listening who maybe do struggle with their focus, I can completely empathize with what they're going through and sympathize with it.
Yeah, that's funny, because recently, the past 2 years, I realized I did the least amount of reading I'd ever done, which, on one level, I got the most done I'd ever gotten done. So, it wasn't as if that, I was at a loss. But at the end of last year, I realized, what, I probably read about 3 books last year, like in completion. Like, that was it. That was it. And I wanted to get back to reading. So that was a New Year's resolution this year. Where I told myself I'm going to read a book a week, like I used to. And it's been interesting, because now, like, I've started reading. I got a whole bunch of books in my bed, like right here. Like, I read this. Here, let's grab it. Yeah, I read this book last week, Empire of the Summer Moon. It's about Comanche tribe and the history of the United States. Like, really fascinating, like, phenomenal book. I read it, like, this awesome book, nonfiction. I have a few others. So I'm at like 5 for the year so far. So I'm on track.
Yeah, man.
but the experience of reading again, where I was just, I had days like I've had days where I just am in my room the entire day just reading the whole book.
Yeah.
For 4, 5, 6 hours, like getting a whole book. Okay, done. On to the next one.
Yeah.
It's strange because it feels good, and like the process of reading, it is actually very relaxing. There's a mental nourishment to it. And when I do get back on the device now or the computer, there's a harshness to it. And there's sort of this farcical rapidity where you're just going through everything. You're scrolling the feed over and over and over again, refresh, and you're trying to, you're responding to everything at once. And it's not overwhelming in the sense like, oh, I'm so overwhelmed by it, but it feels fake.
Yeah.
And there's a subset there. I realize there's this lack of thought to it. There's this lack of deep thought, deep focus to it. 100%. Where like it's training you to think on such a superficial level. And you see that with how people communicate with each other, where all arguments now, all headlines, all articles, everything, it's all written in emotional sound bites. Yeah, there's very little of facts, reason, context. It's just written to get your attention, fire up your emotions, get you pissed off or confirm your biases, and then you move on to the next thing. And you can do that 1,000 times a day.
Mm-hmm. We're not built to have this level of stimulus go through us, I don't think, not at all. And there was an article that I read not so long ago that said something to do with the amount of stimulus that a typical human encounters now in a single day is the equivalent to the level of stimulus that our Paleolithic ancestors would have done in a month. And you're like, right, okay, so that's the level to which my dopamine is being hacked by devices. And you're totally correct. So the listeners will know that we are evangelists of a good morning routine on this show. And mine is beautiful. It's my favorite part of the day by an absolute country mile. If I've not had to work, I run nightclubs. If I've not had to work the night before and I've been able to go to bed at the time I want, which is 10, and get up at the time I want, which is 6, my morning is beautiful. It's a smoothie, some meditation, some reading, some journaling, some gratitude, some deep work, then some ROMWOD, so some yoga. Then I've finished that, and I'm like, that is, if I could choose a day, I'd have an entire day that was a morning routine. And it almost feels laborious to think, as soon as I step out of that door, that bedroom door, I now need to enter what I feel like the real world and start playing the game of, here we go. And sometimes I work myself up to checking my phone. And I think my particular device, given the industry I'm in and the way that we work, we have a lot of staff and there's a lot of group chats on WhatsApp and there's a lot of social media going on. So maybe I have a supernormal level of supernormal stimulus. But, there's some days where I like this, the equivalent of working up to a 1 rep max. I need to prep myself before I pick the phone up.
My girlfriend, I tell her this sometimes now, since I'll be looking at my phone. Because of the Twitter following I have, and then like the email list and all social media accounts, it's just a constant torrent of notifications and
just a
messages.
barrage.
Yeah, and I'll look at it and be like, oh, like someone else wants a piece of my time. And I think I read an article recently. I think it might have been on BuzzFeed, or maybe it was not. It was about millennial burnout. And the article was quite insightful. There were people, of course, commenting that this is bullshit, this article. Millennials are just weak. I'm like, but there was something very real to it, to the effect that millennials, the writer elucidated this very clearly, millennials deal with this environment of such overwhelming stimulation, like we just said all the time. And there's so many things grabbing our attention, and every task takes another piece of it. And at the same time, we have the socioeconomic pressure of trying to just survive. And people have the socioeconomic pressure of, will they ever be able to get ahead? And then you have all these factors that you're dealing with, that doing simple things like getting back to somebody on the phone, or having to respond to an email, or having to go send a package. Is it laziness, or is it just that you cannot do another thing? Like we are so driven now towards this god of efficiency. Everything has to be efficient and optimized and fast and speed. But then we do all that, but does it make our lives better in the sense that we actually get more done, or are we actually just having this sort of these like death by 1,000 cuts or pinpricks?
Totally correct. Yeah, like is it?
Then you have to drop something off, and you're like, I don't feel like doing this.
I can't go to the post office. It's too much today.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I keep on thinking when you're talking about that about RAM in a computer, and it's that you still have the same total amount of RAM, but that the number of tasks that it's trying to do at one time is now, 10x, 100x, 1000x. And switching between those is just so exhausting. I wonder, I wanted to ask someone who works in an industry similar to yourself, where personal brand is a big deal, this for quite a while. How do you draw the line between when you're doing work and when you're being wasteful on social media? Because there's always that excuse, right? Oh, well, if I spend another X amount of time on Twitter, maybe I'll find something which I quote tweet or retweet or reply to, and that bangs and that adds another 100 subs onto this channel or that email list. How do you try and control that?
So this is going to be like a sort of contrarian sideways perspective. I don't control it, but I have a different model of how I see this. So my background's the fitness industry. That's where I started. I've been a personal trainer for 10 years. And when I got on Facebook, about 2007, I was in the sort of the Facebook fitness community for a long time until 2016. I delayed Facebook over a year ago, well over a year ago. But what I saw happen for people as they try to develop their brand, like this idea of a personal brand now that has like become very preeminent, where because we are in such a search for truth and authenticity, and we no longer trust institutions at all. Like we don't trust news, we don't trust government, we don't trust authority figures. So we're looking for individuals that we can sort of have be our digital friends, and we'll trust them because it's a one-to-one interaction. So I saw people doing this in the fitness industry, years ago before personal branding even became a hot term. And I realized that those people that had the healthiest relationship with their audience and had the healthiest relationship with these tools, these platforms, they didn't obsess over the value they delivered on a daily basis. They didn't obsess over productivity. They tried to be consistent in what they presented to the best of their abilities. And then those things that were not in alignment with the brand or in alignment with the domain that they were working in, they didn't worry about it because they had the perspective that, you know what, I'm human. I am not just one thing. I am many things. So I'm just going to show essentially my personality as it is. Yeah, and whether you connect with it or not, that's upon you. So I've said this before many times. If you want to have a really good relationship with your audience and with your work, you have to be fully invested in it, in the sense that you want to be consistent in value, but you have to be detached from it in regards to the outcome that it gives you.
It's a difficult position to be in, right?
It's very paradoxical. Like, so it's one of those. It's almost like sort of paradox that, like, if you want to love people, then you also have to be able to hate them in equal measure. You can't only be one. It has to be able to be both. So that's how I work it now. So on a daily basis, as ideas come into my head and things synthesize, I'll share them. And then there'll be times where I'll just be in a humorous mood, a snappy mood, and I'll tweet whatever I feel like. And it's worked for the. I realize for the reason it's worked is because people see you and they realize you're not trying to be serious all the time. You're not trying to present yourself just one thing. You have flaws. You are a person. You're not a bot. You're not boring. Mm-hmm. If you're selling on personality that way, that's highly, highly, highly effective. Yeah, and on a certain meta level, at the highest levels of any industry, the people that are most successful are the ones who have that kind of power personality.
You're totally right. I mean, as a good example, Elon Musk, 40 million, I think it's about 20 million followers or 40 million followers. SpaceX, like 4 million. And he deleted Tesla's Facebook.
Yeah.
Like Cristiano Ronaldo, 30 to 40 million, Real Madrid, 12 million. Like, people connect with people, they don't connect with brands.
Yes.
And you can do the mistakes that you make. Like, imagine if Real Madrid started tweeting stuff with typos in, or accidentally putting up just random bits of content and stuff like that. Everyone would be like, what are you doing? You're supposed to be this professional, but you can get away with that when you're a person. That's definitely an asymmetry in the delivery in the ability to deliver a message between personal brand and corporate brand.
I use this example when I was training personal trainers, where, like, the term personal trainer, what's the first word in it? Personal. It's personal. So you should be personable with the people you train, and it's two humans having a conversation, and you're trying to help them, and they're teaching you something. The trainer part comes second. Yeah, and I would say that because, for a lot of trainers, where people get into these very prescriptive, dogmatic mindsets as to how they're supposed to interact and what they're supposed to say, and they want to fit people into boxes. I'm like, that's not what it is. There's no prescription. There's no ultimate philosophy. There's no magic solution. It's speaking to people as individuals. You are a human being. They're a human being. It's personal first, and then you train them second. So even personal branding. Are you a person who has a brand that has coalesced around you, or are you this sort of contrived brand and you're trying to be personable through that brand? The former people will take to. The latter, they'll think you're boring or just really just full of shit.
Or a sociopath.
Yeah, or a sociopath. You see that online all the time, where people will turn on their guru or their whoever they idolized after a while because they realize it's just the same repetitive message and there's no real depth to it. They're just basically repeating this ad hoc for the sake of selling thing.
I get that with Ty Lopez. Like, Ty Lopez for me now. I don't know what I've clicked on, but that man has pixeled me hard, and I'm getting retargeted like an bastard on every form of social media that I log on to. It's like the Ty Lopez machine now. Like when I go on, and a lot of his stuff, like Ty, if I see another video of you telling me in front of a jet or in front of a Lamborghini or in your garage about how people need to start working online, I'm like, man, like it has lost an awful lot of that authenticity. In my opinion, I totally get what you mean there.
Oh, well, that's a good example too. I talked about this in an email last night where I called it sort of like predatory capitalism, which. So, I mean, I say that, like, let me give some context. So capitalism, as an idea, as a concept, obviously we could say it's done great good for the world. Free markets, the ability to earn, like everyone having, the equal opportunity at least to create earning power, to, to have their work valued, meritocracy, so on and so forth. But, like any system, like any idea, there's always negatives to anything. And I was using the term last night, predatory capitalism. I was referring to the Fyre Festival, which, remember 2 years ago was this spectacular, massive failure, this sort of like peak apogee of millennial narcissism and the desire for beauty and envy and wanting to be known and wanting to be where the action is and living for the gram, living for Instagram. I was talking about the Fyre Festival and the guy that came up with it, Billy McFarland, and I said, this is a guy's an example of sort of predatory capitalism and sociopathy, where he created this very cool idea for the festival. He wanted to deliver this experience. But his actual regards for the people that signed up, he didn't regard anybody as being valuable at all because he just doesn't. He doesn't because he is legitimately sociopathic. And even after the Fyre Festival ended and hardly anyone got refunded and everyone lost money, he was still using that email list he had from everyone that had bought tickets, and he was sending them fake offers for other tickets, fake offers for concert tickets, fake offers for going to be Beyonce and Jay-Z, and he's trying to get cash out of them. I'm like, and is that capitalism? Like, yes, it is. Like, he's trying to earn money, and he has an email list. I'm like, it absolutely is. But is it exploitation of people? Like, 100% it's exploitive. You see that now within the personal branding realm, and even on like the larger realm, like the sort of big food, big pharma, the opioid crisis in the United States, where this motivation for profit at any cost, and with complete disregard for the human cost. And then the argument, well, it's making money, it's creating jobs, or like, someone's profiting from that. Like, that's great. But for someone like Ty Lopez, like, I even think it's Ty Lopez. Obviously, it seems like he has helped people. Like what you just said, you realize, like, you know what? Like, as soon as I get marked within whatever your social media network web is, I'm just another target for you to hopefully eventually get some cash out of.
Yep.
So I'm going to keep getting ads over and over again. I'm going to keep seeing your stuff over and over and over again. Like, does Ty Lopez really care? Maybe he does. Maybe he thinks that's a good thing. I don't know.
But if he does, it's not coming across, which is the issue.
Yeah.
Like, if I can sense, if someone's trying to sell me something and I get the sensation that they don't care, they either are being willfully neglectful of my feelings as a potential customer of theirs, or they're shit and naive about what their message is that's coming across. And I don't want to be coached by either of those people. So, but I mean, to go back to the Fyre Festival thing, man, I've watched that twice, the Netflix documentary. I know that I know we said on Twitter I was going to try and hack the Hulu version, but I haven't been able to do that.
And I watched the Hulu one too. Day before yesterday.
Is there any new information, or is it just similar sort of stuff?
It was really insightful. I did not expect to watch the documentary at all. I remember when I was on Twitter, 2 years ago, and the Fyre Festival went down on Twitter, and it was a pile on, and everyone was like making fun of it, and like these stupid rich kids.
That cheese sandwich photo. Cheese
sandwich, and so like it was funny, and I remembered it, and I couldn't tell you why I actually watched the first documentary. I think I was just I know why. I was talking about it with my girlfriend, and she had no idea what the Fyre Festival was. So she's very sort of out of the loop on like social media stuff, which is great.
She sounds perfect.
And, yeah, she had never heard of it. I'm like, oh, we should watch the documentary. Like, you can see what it is. So she works in the tech. She actually works in tech, and she has a company. But yeah, she's sort of like she manages to sort of stay out of the loop of the daily whatever Twitter.
She's got the balance right. We need to get her. We need to get her to prescribe us the digital reduction method.
I'll ask her. But so that's why we watched the Fyre Festival documentary, and I watched it, and it was actually quite fascinating because I just assumed it was this music festival that went down and went down in flames, haha. But it started actually as this idea for an app, which was a very legitimate idea where Billy McFarland, the guy who was the entrepreneur, he had this idea that what if you could book talent directly through like one network and you didn't have to go through middlemen. So it was very similar actually to what Jerry Weintraub did in the 1970s. Jerry Weintraub, for background context, he was an American band talent manager in the 1970s, and he was known for changing the music industry where he signed up a gazillion acts under his management company. He had like Led Zeppelin, Frank Sinatra, very big names. And then rather than when he would go and do tours with his talent, rather than have to negotiate with like the middlemen promoters in different areas across the United States, he would go directly to the theater where the show would be held. And this was a big idea back in the 1970s. And he'd negotiate whoever owned the venue. So he was taking, he was still a middleman, but he's like, rather than have to add another step, I got the talent. Let's just go talk where we're going to perform. And that was it. So the idea for the Fyre Festival, it was actually supposed to be promotion for an app where if you want to book, I don't know, you want to book you want to book Rihanna for your birthday party, you could just open up the app. Her booking fee was right there. It'd take you directly to her agent. You'd have to like put down the money, like, a deposit, and it was supposed to take steps to transaction. So the Fyre Festival started this idea like, we'll use this to promote the app. And then the guys, Billy McFarland and Ja Rule is the other one who was sort of the hype man for this project. They got to the Bahamas, and then they just had this idea to just fly in like the top 20 models in the world and, spend a lot of money doing this. And let's just film ourselves partying for a bunch of days. And then we'll try and make like some sort of sizzle reel out of it. And that became the Fyre Festival documentary. And they never expected it to work at all. But then when it became popular and they realized, okay, we got something, let's just launch this festival. So, I mean, talk about getting in way over your head. So seeing that happen and seeing like every human misstep along the way of trying to do this grand project that was like never got off the ground and it was like doomed from the start. But then you also sort of saw the power of personality where the guy, Billy, despite everything breaking down every single day, despite being behind on money and like defrauding people and not paying people and just like everything that could go wrong did go wrong. It was like Brown's, sort of law that way. He still managed to make it happen because he just was so like, I mean, this is where sociopathy is a good thing. He was so determined that, no, this will work. I swear to God, that everybody just kind of went along with his personality. It is like, Billy says it's going to work. So I know it's not, and it's failing. I haven't paid in 4 months, but screw it. Let's just do it anyway.
There's something, I'm so conflicted about him, right? And my appreciation of this, and for the club promoters that are listening as well, they'll know it's rare that we have something that talks about our industry, and this was one, and it is a club promoter's worst nightmare. Like, and we've all, we run weekly club nights. I've done 1,000 events probably over my career, and there's times we've opened a club in Newcastle where the painters were still painting the toilets while customers were going in, and we were hoping, because it had just opened, and we were hoping no one would need the toilet for like the first 15 minutes, because then that means that the painters could have finished. And like we've done ones where we've had to get like a generator in because the power had been cut off because the bill hadn't been paid and stuff. And you're like, right, okay, like this is, you
can relate.
I can relate on a slightly deeper level. I've got that degree of anxiety, but you're totally right. The Billy McFarland character, I'm so conflicted about because there's something so seductive and romantic and admirable about someone who has this single-minded purpose and is able to follow something through like that. The difference is he wasn't doing it from a place of passion. He was doing it from a place where he wanted the status and he wanted the money and he wanted all the stuff that's associated with it. But because naturally, especially in this world, we're so drawn to success. Like, success is it is the zenith on the hill of what everybody wants in this world. And here's the thing that a friend said to me a few weeks ago, and I can't get it out of my head, that Billy McFarland, his virtue and his integrity was basically non-existent throughout the whole festival. The whole project, all he wanted to do was look cool on as grand of a scale as possible. And
For sure.
the only reason that anybody on the planet is slating him, or that the vast majority of people are slating him, is because it didn't work. Now, if all of the stars had aligned and that guy, his operations director or whatever, had sucked the cock of the customs guy and got the water out, and then, and then, somehow they'd managed to get some villas, and maybe it hadn't been that weekend where the population doubled for basically yacht week, and maybe the food had arrived, and maybe the catering had worked, and blah, blah, blah. Let's say that in a different set of random circumstances, another iteration of this particular festival, everything had come together correctly, but none of it had been due to preparation. It was just a more look upon look. And somehow, maybe they'd petered out like a 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10 festival. We would be hailing this guy as the new festival creator on the planet.
Oh, we would.
The difference, the only difference between iteration 1 in the real world and iteration 2 that we're talking about here is the fact that it didn't work. So we're so seduced by success at any costs that we forget him. You'd be like, oh, yeah, but it doesn't matter about his virtues, man. Look, he knew it was going to be okay in the end. And you're like, right, but does the ends justify the means? And are the means justifying the value? His values?
That's a very good question. I don't have an answer. I have to think about that myself. And the thing with the Hulu documentary, which I would suggest watching it, since the Hulu documentary goes more into the psychology of himself. He's interviewed a lot more.
Right.
The festival ending, and you see, and it goes more to his personal history, and sort of how he started as an entrepreneur, where he was in kindergarten and he charged a girl $1 for fixing her crown. That was his first entrepreneurial endeavor, where he taught himself how to code on this 1999 computer and hacked his school network and sent this message that I'll fix everybody's crowns for $1. I'm not kidding.
Wow.
It's he had that instinct, at a very young age. He's obviously quite brilliant that way. And then later on in college, it showed his sort of entrepreneurial, projects, which failed. Maybe to New York, he wanted to, create something important. But his first project, Magnesis, which it also highlighted, where he created this credit card company, which is actually fraudulent, but he made it. But it was interesting though, because like you said, it shows it's success at any cost, and he still got ahead despite this for a very long time. But yeah, it makes me question some of this entrepreneurial mindset that so many people have, especially in Silicon Valley, where move fast and break things, fail. I'm what are the human consequences of doing this? In his first case, he was never really truly successful, I would say. His first business, did he get venture capital? Yeah, he did. Did the people that bought the cards get what they were promised? No, they never did. But he still managed to walk away with money. Okay. With the Fyre Festival, the whole documentary goes much more into the inception of it, the nitty-gritty details. From the very beginning, it was this very doomed idea. Every step of the way, where it wasn't just a series of oh, this is kind of a problem. It was, this is a red flag. This can't get done. We're going to have to either lie to people, rip them off, or do both. And it's okay, because we need to be solution oriented.
Yeah.
You see these entrepreneurial cliches all the time. It's all about solutions. We got to solve the problem. We got to solve the problem. Let's not talk about problems. Let's talk about solutions. And so he goes through this, and then later on, when he's being interviewed, and compare versus his court transcripts, and he's still compulsively lying, and he doesn't have any sense that he even is. He's still compulsively lying. Well, you said this, but then you're saying this right now.
Oh.
Yeah, you can see you can see the cognitive dissonance that people have that are legitimately sociopathic, where they're caught in a lie, but they can't even acknowledge it. It's
which one's the truth?
Yeah, they don't even know.
Yeah.
But again, what you said, what if he had successfully done it? I'm to have done that, it would have taken a more sort of psychopathic person that had some sense of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
This is the messed up thing, because I was thinking about this. I'm man, I wonder if I could pull this idea off in LA. I was thinking about this because it was a great idea. It was.
Yep.
Like it was an amazing idea. The marketing for it was so brilliant, especially the use of the models was the biggest thing. Like I felt like that was overlooked. Where like, what did it take to make that Fyre Festival campaign a success? They got the 20 most beautiful women in the world with the biggest followings. They had them post an orange tile. And then just because people wanted proximity to beautiful women, they wanted to be where beautiful women were. Because a beautiful woman, it's a woman that everyone wants to be, and it's a woman that every man wishes he could have. Like that is so desired. On some level, beauty is purely authentic because we can't truly fake it. We can try, but we can't fake it.
Yep.
So like supermodels are sort of like this unknowing agent for truth in a certain way. They may have no depth at all. There's nothing to them. But because they're beautiful, well, at least I know that's real. So
that's so correct.
People signed up for it, and like there are people spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to be there with the hopes that they're going to be able to be next to somebody who's a 10, and they can take a photo with her and say, "Look at me and who I'm with, and yeah, I'm important now. Like my existence has been validated."
Yeah.
How do you pull that off? Like my God, but like could it be pulled off? I think it honestly could. Except now everyone's going to be self-aware. It's like, oh, is this another Fyre Festival?
Yeah. That's it. Well, you can pull that switch once, and anytime, which sucks actually, because had that have worked, because there's influencer marketing's a big industry at the moment as it is, but had that have worked, you would have had this hyper influencer marketing. There would have been a new market that would have opened up, and like Kendall Jenner's doing her own things, but like that echelon of influencer would be, would there be the new opening of a particular casino that was in association with them? And,
Yes.
Man, the whole documentary just completely blew my mind. And like I say, having watched a number of failed festivals, much smaller, but watched a number of failed festivals over the years, it takes a very special level of boneheadedness and single-mindedness to even believe that you can create a festival on an island. Like, they make the perfect example, and they say in Miami, like you have Ultra Music Festival, which is one of the biggest, best festivals on the planet, best lineups, and even that is a logistical nightmare. And these guys were wanting to do it somewhere with like no bio-waste disposal, no running water, no air conditioning. You're like, I can't work out if it's a love of the idea that drew them through the obstacles or an ignorance to the obstacles in terms of Billy. And Ja Rule as well. Like Ja Rule doesn't get enough stick in the Netflix documentary. It's like, once it's all gone down, you'll remember this scene, and they're in the conference room, and it's got like, it must be from like Google Hangout, and they've got all the little faces across the bottom of the screen. And Ja Rule's in there going like, no, listen guys, like, everybody has setbacks, man. And then he uses some inane, pithy example, and you're like, listen, Ja Rule, mate, honestly, like you just need to go back to making music because you are shite at business, and you're just getting in the way of people who had a potentially profitable app.
Yeah, no, I remember that. He's like, what was the example? He's like, nobody died, no one's in jail, so like we're all fine. I'm like, there are times that is appropriate, and there are times that's not appropriate. I felt bad, for the guys that designed like the software for this app, which is probably a good app by the looks of it, and they're all out of a job, never got paid, and now the project they worked on that might have been totally viable had it been done on a smaller scale, that's just all gone and lost.
Yeah, especially considering that was the project.
And it was a good idea.
It's like someone saying, let's launch this particular car. And then one guy on the board decides to open up like an ice cream store that happens to have like Class A drugs in the ice cream to promote the car. And then the car gets scrapped. And you're like, oh, for fuck's sake, mate. But yeah, the guys who make that happen, again, coming from a club promoter's perspective, it's difficult to book talent. We're fortunate in the UK that Voodoo Events, the company that I own, we have good connections and existing relationships with these big bookers, people like Big Bang and other large booking agencies know who we are, and we have a contact in there. We'll get preferable rates. But if you were a new fledgling festival or club night, or even like a 16-year-old dad who wants to run a birthday party or something like that, like trying to book big talent is a nightmare. So there was 100% a gap in the market for that digitalized version of the guy from the 70s that you said, one-stop shop, like an eBay for the best talent on the planet. Like if you could book, and imagine the downstream effects of that, like you would have an awful lot more festivals and startups in terms of events going on. The artists, how many more times would Blink-182 get booked if people knew how easy it was to book Blink-182? Like, they'd be getting deposits all the time.
Oh, constantly. I've been thinking about that. I'm like, that was just a very legitimately good idea. And so I've had some proximity to the entertainment industry, being in Los Angeles and working in Hollywood. And it's this very constant old nightmare of, okay, let's try to get a hold of this person. How do we get a hold of this person? All right, well, contact this person first and sweet talk them. Well, maybe talk to this person second, and then you got sweet talk, maybe pay them. And then maybe they'll pass on a message to like a third person. And then maybe that third person might have like some direct line of access to the talent, who maybe will get back to them, who maybe will call you.
Yeah.
But only if you talk like it's just this.
The stars need to align so well, right?
Yeah, and so, I mean, so much of it comes down to almost this luck, where it's like, okay, hopefully, like, I'm hoping this works out. Yeah, like I wonder if that will happen at some point, since it seems like, especially for talent, let's say people that are up and coming, they're trying to sort of like become known, be seen, develop like their own, develop their presence that way. For like lower level, mid level acts, that could be very revitalizing for their career in a certain level, because like I wonder how much of, I want to say success. It makes you question how much of success is not just from like a talent's lack of hustle, but from just like this poor management.
Accessibility.
Yeah, accessibility. I mean, that's a very common thing in Hollywood too. Like if you have a bad manager, a bad agent, you might be missing opportunities all the time, and you have no idea.
Yeah, I get that. I didn't know that most of the people didn't get refunded. Is that the case?
There were some people got their. I think that they were like the people that lower level tickets, they got their money back. But so one of the things that came out was like the wristband.
Yep, the RSID payment bracelet.
I don't know if that was refunded actually, since he still he got sued for something like $25 million.
Yeah.
So I don't like that. Some of that money was not refunded at all. I mean, even that wristband was a cash grab because they had to pay off other stuff from other loans he'd taken out. So.
Yeah, because that was apparently there's that guy on the Netflix documentary who says that there was a woman who rang him aggressively saying that he hadn't loaded up his wristband yet, and it would appear that the tickets were maybe like £3,000 to £5,000, and then they were being suggested to put almost that amount again on the wristband so they could do jet ski hire and alcohol, this and all the rest of it. So what happened? Because he didn't have festival insurance.
No.
What is the situation moving forward with getting that money out? I mean, he's in jail, which is, I mean, like, do not pass go, do not collect £200. Like, jail is like, no one's getting debt out of you in jail. I'm going to presume that they'll have done his forensic accounts, and they'll have gone through every asset he has with a fine tooth comb. And once you've sold off like a couple of bottles of Ciroc and probably some shit pairs of Louboutins, like, what's left?
Yeah, well, that was so. I mean, actually, after watching the second one, I did a bit of research. But essentially, like, nobody got paid. Like, I mean, like almost nobody got paid. Like a lot of people, like the Bahamian workers, no one got their money back. Simply for the reason being that when before the festival ever was like an idea and they were just on the island filming, he basically ran a Ponzi scheme of just debt, where he got capital from one person, or short-term loans, and then the next round of funding would pay off the first round, and the next round would pay off the second round. So, like, when everything was accounted for with forensic analysis, there was no money anywhere because, like, it didn't exist. He got $500,000, spent all of it, and then got a loan for $500,000. Telling the other guy, "Don't worry, you'll get the money back eventually," like it's going towards something. So there was nothing to even what's the term I'm looking for? There was nothing to liquidate.
Yeah.
Like, literally, this was nothing.
So it kind of just evaporates into thin air, because there'll be some things that they won't have been able to get on credit. So they'll have had to have paid deposits, for instance, for some of the artists. They literally won't have been able to book them without that. And there's certain things that will have needed to have been paid up front. The Instagram models and the guys who made the video and people like that, like especially the early stuff. So I guess the early people get paid, and then there's just, it's like this black hole vacuum that's just sucked up everybody's money from both sides. So you've sucked up money from one side and time or resources from the contributors' side.
I think the only ones that seem to have gotten paid, like for sure, were the models. That was it.
Okay.
Yeah, like that was really it. Everybody else, like they weren't getting paid, or they're getting paid sporadically. Like they never got back what they were owed at all. Yeah, I mean, he burned through money at just an insane rate himself because he was, he bought a freaking Bugatti for $1 million. The alcohol bill, his dining out bill, his paying for everything while no one was actually getting paid. So yeah, that's just an unfortunate situation. But I mean, it was interesting too that you can see how like debt, you can just keep just allocating it somewhere else over and over again to stay ahead of it. But eventually it will catch up to you. Yeah. Like you can't keep going back to the same investors and still trying to fundraise from your own customers. Yeah, eventually it runs out.
There's a thing that's been going through my head. Sam Harris, in his book Waking Up, talks about an individual, I think it was in the States in the 70s or the 80s, who began partway through his life to have this compulsion for aggression, really severe compulsion for aggression. And I think he went up onto a bell tower and started shooting random people, wrote a note saying that something needs to be looked at about myself, then killed himself and potentially even killed his family as well. And when they did an autopsy on him, they decided to conduct a thorough one on his brain, and they found that there was a tumor which was affecting his amygdala, which I think is what mediates aggression in people. And it was literally like someone pressing the aggression button in your brain. So this guy's free will essentially had been taken away from him. And I wonder if Billy McFarlane has a entrepreneurial equivalent of this. Like he's just got this like hustle button. The hustle is just, it's like Gary V is standing on his neck. Like the entire time just going like grind, hustle, like the whole day.
I can believe it. I mean, I've met, I've had some experience in the tech space. I mean, I've met people like that where they're just, they have to constantly be creating, selling something. And it is the essence of their being, and they can't not be doing that. And they couldn't really tell you why they need to. It's just a compulsion for them. They just do.
Yeah, it's weird, right? Because if we're in an industry, yourself and me, we are self-employed. Our value is derived from how hard we work and how much we do get on that hustle. Mm-hmm. But there's limits to it. There's like I have a safety catch in place where if it was 3 days before a festival and someone had made a website detailing the fact that I had like Hurricane Katrina storm tents outside or whatever it was, and there was no water, and I'm asking the ops director to suck off the man who does the customs thing, and I'm just like that would have been a point at which, I mean, long before there, but I would have had to pull the plug. But there is a lack of that. The hustle button's getting depressed so hard that he's just able to plow on through. And again, that's why people seem to be so seduced by it. Like people are aghast, but almost in awe as well. Like a lot of the statuses and tweets I've seen about it, there's a lot of awe in there of this guy.
Well, this is one of those paradoxical things in human nature. Like everyone loves success, but we also hate the people that are successful. But the idea of just being a human engine of movement where like you never stop ever. Yeah, everyone on some level like aspires to that. If they had the motivation to do that, or if they could only be that way, how much more would they get done? But I mean, we also live in a culture where we worship work. That I realize that's so ingrained from like sort of the 1940s, 30s, like sort of the greatest generation, where it's this cultural sentiment that sort of has taken over sort of the Western world. And I've tried to trace why it is. And I think it started in the 30s, 40s during like the Great Depression, during the stock market crash, where you had, the world economy had completely, sort of this collapse on itself. Everyone was economically depressed. And the only way to survive, this was over 80 years ago, almost 90 years ago, was that you had to work. You had to work. Otherwise, you were getting nothing. So like that, I truly believe like if I had to pinpoint like where's the inception of hustle and grind culture, it was then. It was then, and that had followed the automation revolution of the industrial era, where now you could get so much work done through automation, you could leverage productivity. So you have this leveraging of productivity, and then you have this crash, and then you have the instinctual and the predication of desire, where you have to work, otherwise you're not going to survive. And that carries over into World War II, and then post World War II, during like at least the United States boom, and then how do you rebuild Europe? We're going to have to work to rebuild the rubble, literally.
Yeah.
You have this generation of people where they are raised with that mindset, and they instill that, and then they actually do create an era of prosperity. It's 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, overall, relatively speaking, where if you worked and you could get the job and you put in the hours, you would get something in return. And the more you worked, the higher you would rise.
Mm.
Yeah, but then we get to the thing is, though, we get to the era of technology, late 1990s, 2000s. And now with the advent of AI and the advent of digital media and the advent of social platforms, you could be working hard and you're running faster and faster just to stay in the same place.
It's the Red Queen effect for those people who know the mental models.
Yeah, it's a Red Queen trap. So now your hard work really doesn't mean much, because someone could be working less than you, but their work leverages way more than yours does. But at the same time, what if you work really hard and it's all leveraged work too? Then you're just like a god of work. And
yes.
No one can stop you ever.
Yeah, you are right. It's an artifact of this quite noble approach to work, right? When, but now that we don't, going back to the very beginning of the conversation, when you don't have a job for life anymore, where choosing what is almost more important than choosing how. Whereas in the past, I think how by any means would have probably, are you a hard worker? Yes. When you work in a factory, when you're not a knowledge worker, essentially, when IQ is of or IQ, I'm going to get in trouble if I say that. When your intellectual capacity is less important, a lot of the promotion will be based on seniority. Like, Bob's been here 50 years and John's been here 45, so Bob gets the promotion, even if John's maybe a tiny little bit more competent, because that's the way that the business is worked, like a family, or heirs to a kingdom almost. Like the eldest brother gets it, even if he's a complete tit, and the younger brother would be a much better choice, but he's the older one, so he gets it. And you have that noble approach to work. But now you no longer have the same lineage moving forward where you can know that you're going to be staying in the same place. Like, as a perfect example, self-driving cars. Like, there's, between 2 and 4 million workers, I think. Oh, no, 1 million workers in America are what they call professional drivers. Like, that is a huge displacement of labor.
Yeah. Well, that's, I think, like Uber's ultimate plan, I think, with everyone driving the cars, it's just the data. They have this massive database now of driving patterns and vehicles. With self-driving cars, like you think about the U.S. economy, like how much time gets lost, how much productivity gets lost from people having to drive. Once you have cars that can drive themselves, okay, well now you have more time to work, one, but you free up human capital, like again. So like even that desire for efficiency. But is that a bad thing? I don't think so, but I mean, it's interesting that all these things they create this confluence effect. Yeah, I think the seniority factor arises from when work was artisanal. It's like artisan work where, for most of human history, you couldn't really mass produce anything. Like if you did, you just had to have a bunch of people working on all at once, and the people that were the best had been the people that had been working the longest. Like that was. Probably up until 1800, that was most things before mechanization really took over.
Something that requires a craft.
Yeah, like everything was craftsmanship on a certain level. Literally everything. How much? What could you reproduce that was just, in 20 minutes you could get done? There was literally nothing. But then we get to the industrial era. Now we get to the era of machines, and the machines get digitized into computers. And now you can produce things, within minutes, within seconds. You can punch in, 3D printing. Like it's still in its infancy, but you can type in a code, and it made it for you, and you don't have to do anything.
Yes,
it's just the idea. Yeah, even coding itself is starting to change with the advent of machine learning. Coding, the idea like everyone learned to code. It's a ha kind of thing. But even like the languages of coding now, they're getting simpler. Where you don't even need to be able to code. 5 years from now, you won't have to code. You'll just type in what you'd like to have coded, and then the AI will code it for you.
It'll be like Squarespace for websites, but for coding. Like
Yes.
drag and drop coding.
Mm-hmm.
Well, learn to code is not going to go down very well there, is it? But look, Alex, man, today has been awesome. I've really enjoyed it. It's been an awesome catch up, and
Conversation.
I'd love to have you back on. I'm sure that a lot of the listeners are going to want you back on as well.
Definitely.
Man, have a good day. It's been sweet. Thank you.
Take care.